Ashley Hawkins, and I am the manga librarian. And today we are talking about the ever exciting topic of digital manga licensing agreements and libraries. And I say that with some sarcasm, but it actually is in some ways pretty interesting, and I think this could be interesting to people who aren't in the library world, who maybe are wondering, like, why can't you get certain manga titles from your library? Why are they only in physical formats? And therefore, in this time of COVID and only being able to check out e-manga, what's going on? So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about the broader picture and then talk about individual publishers and kind of what their MO is, like their modus operandi are, because they each kind of have their own thing going on, and I think it's a little bit important to understand what is going on here. And, you know, and kind of put out into the universe that it would be really great if we had better licensing agreements for manga. And I mean, there are other things I'd like to see as a librarian come out of manga publishers and light novel publishers, and I'd like to put those things into the universe too. But this, I felt like, because I just finished for me, a really big purchase order, and I did buy a substantial amount of manga within that purchase order because, you know, I was focusing on buying things that were pleasure reading. I have another purchase that I'm going to be doing that is like academically focused, but this was really to supplement our independent reading collection. So I really bought a chunk of manga, and even for me, I was kind of struggling because of these licensing agreements, because I had lists of things that I want in our collection, and I couldn't get because they weren't available on Overdrive. To give some context, the digital service that we use in New York City schools is Sora. My campus, which consists of 3 schools, is part of a larger consortium, which is managed by the New York City Department of Education's Office of Library Services. They do an excellent job of like having this overarching collection, and then we have our own individual collections. It's been a huge boon this year, and has really enabled us to have a good level of accessibility in this current situation, because I currently, although I have a library, I'm not in my library. I am clearly not in my library. You can see my cats behind me when I'm doing these videos, and you can see that I am in a home. I am not in a library. And that's my current situation. I am working remotely. High schools in New York City, as of this moment in time, are not open, and my students do not have access to physical volumes within my library. So a digital collection is absolutely vital in this period in time. And so digital copies of anything, not just manga, digital copies of books, audiobooks, and audiobooks are a huge issue when we're talking about accessibility in terms of digital copies, and we'll get into that. They are completely necessary in this point in time for my library to be a functional library in terms of being able to lend text and audio materials to my students that build their literacy. So that's why I sort of forewent what I had planned to do, which was to start deep diving into various elements of manga and actually take another more librarian focus and look at this facet of collection development. Because when it comes to collecting physical manga, that is its own sort of thing. And there's a lot of things we could talk about there, and that's its own video, I think. And at the end of the day, it's easier. The same as collecting any physical materials are always going to be easier to acquire than digital materials, just because of all these weird licensing agreements. And the main crux is, like I said, the licensing agreements. I'll put in the description box a recent article from Publisher Weekly that kind of puts an overview of where we are now in terms of recent embargoes and legal issues that kind of came up with Overdrive and Macmillan and all sorts of things. The point of this video isn't to rehash those things. If you're not a librarian, that might be interesting to you and kind of give you some perspective as to what's going on. And I'll drop a few other links that sort of talk about problems of access and that will kind of come up as I talk about these issues. So let's kind of take a step into what this issue is. So, I'm going to basically talk you through this by, first off, by talking about one manga in particular, which is probably the one that most people are trying to look for on Overdrive right now, because it won an Eisner, and that is Witch Hat Atelier. It's a very popular manga. It's put out by Kodansha. It is my favorite manga currently being published, I would say, or at least one of them. It's really beautifully illustrated. It has a very compelling and beautiful storyline. A surprisingly diverse cast of characters. Just really, really well done. And it's very well translated. Just there's all sorts of things that I absolutely love about this manga, and that makes it like something that you really want in your library collection. It's perfect for a middle school, a high school, a public library, blah 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 blah. It's just a great manga to have in your collection, and you can't get it, and it's really frustrating. And I've had people specifically ask me about this manga, like why can't I order this? And the short answer is Amazon. So Kadansha, publisher of Witch Hat Atelier, which is the it's actually Kodansha USA. Kodansha is a publisher also in Japan, and it has an American arm which is overseen by another publisher here in the US. It has an agreement with Comixology, which is the comics, uh, digital comics publishing app for Amazon. And they have, if you belong to Comixology Unlimited, the first 3 volumes of Witch Hat Atelier completely free. And then if you want to continue reading the series, you need to purchase it. You can purchase it when it comes at full price, which is about, I believe a digital volume is $8.99, something like that. When it first comes out, you might wait for a sale. Kadansha actually has fairly regular digital sales of their manga on Comixology and Bookwalker. The one thing I will say is Comixology doesn't have exclusive rights to sell the digital copies of Witch Hat Atelier in the United States. They just have exclusive rights to do that that free circulation that they're doing, and it's not technically free. You're paying $15 a month for Comixology Unlimited, which is about the same as a Netflix subscription. It's a lot, and if you're only a manga reader, it's not the best bang for your buck. Consider that you can get all of Shonen Jump for $1.99 a month, and then Comixology will cost you $15 a month, and you will get substantially less content for 15 times the price, or 7 times the price. I'm terrible at math. So it's not great. It's not great. So you have options, obviously, if you have money, if you have disposable income. But for libraries, there's just no way to get this manga digitally. You can buy physically. It's totally possible to buy it physically. That exists in a totally different realm. But when we're talking digitally, there's just no licensing agreement there. Overdrive doesn't have it. I don't know about 3M, but I assume they don't. Amazon has these exclusive rights, and it's something that draws people to Comixology because there are these like really great titles that are on their list for their Comixology Unlimited thing, where it's like, oh, I'd get Witch Hat Atelier, I'd get this title, that title. Oh, those are good titles. That's something I want to read. But you only get the first 3 volumes, and then you've got to keep paying afterwards. And you're paying $15 a month. And you're also paying $15 a month for things that you may not want to read. There's also a lot of junk that's kind of just forced on you there. I mean, it's a lot. So there's that whole element. And so that's kind of where we are. So if you can't find things, I would bet you some solid money that you would find that the first few volumes of it are on Comixology. And that's just the way it is. It's gross. It's very similar to Audible exclusives and how that creates a certain vacuum in the market. I myself am at a school where I have teachers who teach Born a Crime by Trevor Noah um, as one of their texts, and they can't get an audiobook for it because it's an Audible exclusive. Um, this is an accessibility issue. This is an issue in terms of like providing services to students. It's mind-boggling. I So that just is the way it is. Um, but let's talk about, you're the librarian. You want to buy some manga. What do you do? Who do you look at? Who do you trust? Who can you go to? Here's some publishers, and I'm going to break down what they've got, basically, what their licensing agreements are, and what type of selection they have. So we're going to start off with Viz, because Viz is unique. Viz probably has the best selection available on Overdrive. I would say that they definitely have the widest breadth of material available, and it's everything. It's Naruto, it's Demon Slayer, it's My Hero Academia, it's everything you could possibly want. But it is metered access. Metered access means that you can only check out for a certain amount of time or a certain number of checkouts. For every single Viz title that I have seen on Overdrive, it is 52 checkouts or 26 months, whichever comes first. If your manga readers are like mine, you will eat through those 52 checkouts really quickly. Now, I will say the price for those 52 checkouts is about $6.99. For me, it's kind of worth it. It's worth it to provide that access to my readers, to my patrons. It's not too much money out of my budget. It'll last me a decent amount of time. I have a population of about 1,500 roughly, and 52 checkouts will actually circulate pretty well within my population. I'd say manga readers consist of probably about 100 of my students at this moment. It's a little hard right now to gauge things because I'm not physically in the library. Usually we have a wider circulation than we do currently. But at the moment I've got about 100-ish readers that are using either Sora, or they are using Comics Plus, which is a database that I have a subscription to through a grant from the New York City Department of Ed Office of Library Services. And that kind of gives me an idea of like what's kind of going on. The majority of my readers, the majority of my users that are actually engaging with the library are readers of graphic content, is something that I will kind of say. Which, I don't know, it might just be because of me. For me, it's worth it, is essentially what I'm saying. It's the majority of their titles, 52 checkouts. It can it can become costly though. In a big community, I can see in a public library that could become very costly. Um, Definitely. Uh, so it really depends. You have to kind of do you have to do some math, work out your readership, or how quick are they going to eat through it? Do you have the budget for it? Um, is it worth it? Um, my philosophy is if somebody's going to read it, then it's worth it. But you know, everybody has their own budgetary stuff, so that's just something to keep in mind. Um, Next is Seven Seas. Um, Seven Seas is actually doing a really good job with their licensing in terms of library accessibility. One copy, one user is their rule of thumb. So you buy a copy, it's yours. It belongs to your library. So, and it's being used by, it's one copy, it gets used by one user at a time, circulates basically the same way a book would. There's a large selection. Seven Seas actually is doing a really good job of bringing over more and more interesting titles. I am consistently impressed with the things they are bringing over. I'm happy with the things they're bringing over. And I think I purchased a fair amount of Seven Seas manga in my most recent order. So I would say putting in Seven Seas Entertainment, which is the name of the publisher, is a good thing you could do. They just they're giving us a good deal here. It's one copy, one user. I have it. I'm gonna have it forever. It's just there, and it's basically everything they're currently publishing. There's some things that are missing, but who knows? Maybe they're just on the way. I feel like these relationships are still being built, so it's new waters, I think, for these companies. And Seven Seas is a slightly smaller company, so I think it's all kind of fresh to them. Then we go into JNovel. JNovel is similar to Seven Seas in a lot of respects. They publish a lot of the same sort of things, but they also publish what are called light novels, which are something that I'm going to talk about in more depth in another video. But what's important to know about light novels is that they are not manga, although Overdrive does list them as comics and manga. So you do need to pay attention because they're not manga. And there's a difference. They have covers that look like manga. They have manga art within them. Usually the person who will eventually do the manga that is based on the light novel has done the art for the light novel cover and inserts. It's basically, it's the best way to put it is it's like a novelization of a manga or a novelization of an anime, although it generally comes before either of those two things exist. It's written at in a very readable sort of tone, fast-paced, super engaging. I really like light novels. They go down super quick. They're generally really funny, action-packed. Just there's something about them that I really really like. Like I said, I'll talk more about them. But the important thing is that you can get them through JNovel. And you should also just kind of pay attention because there will be the light novel series and then there will be the manga series. And if you're purchasing entire series, you want to make sure that you are making sure that you're getting which of the two you actually want. So if you want the manga series, be sure you're buying the manga series. If you want the light novel series, be sure you're buying the light novel series. If you want both, then buy both. But just be sure, you know, which one it is, because you want to buy what it is you want to buy. And yeah, they do really great work. They have been putting out some stuff that I really, really love. They put out a lot of isekai, which is in another world sort of things, but they also have some things that are a little bit more on the shoujo side, so more of the girly side. I really loved. They're putting out the Mariel Clarac novels, which I'll talk about in my light novel video. I'm gonna get off base if I talk about these things too much. Kodansha. Let's talk about Kodansha. We talked about Kodansha a little bit earlier. As previously noted, they do have a presence on Overdrive. Some of their titles are there, so you can search for Kadansha, and you will find certain titles. Some of them are good, solid titles, but their best titles are not there because of that partnership with Amazon. Every single title that I wanted that isn't on Overdrive is a Comixology Plus title. It just is what it is. It's frustrating. It's annoying. It is reality at this current point in time. Maybe things will change. Who knows? It would be wonderful and lovely, and I would really, really like that. I would really, really like to bring certain titles to my students, to my patrons. This is me begging any publisher who, for some godforsaken reason, has wound up on this. Please release the books. I don't know. That's the Kadansha issue. Who knows what they might do in the future. That just is what it is. They do have a presence. They do have titles. They are one copy, one user if they are on Overdrive. So there is that. So if you purchase a Kodansha title, they are yours, or your library's. They belong to the library. They will always be there for your users. So that's positive. Then we get to Yen Press. Oh, Yen Press. What did libraries ever do to you to hurt you so much? Because Yen Press, a perfectly lovely publisher in every other way, has absolutely no presence on Overdrive. None. Nada. They are an arm of Hachette. I don't know if that plays into it. But yeah, you can't get any Yen Press titles. And that includes titles such as Fruits Basket, my favorite manga of all time. So you just can't get it at all. It's not there. Nothing. It's just, where are we? No accessibility. No Yen Press. And it's sad because, like I said, they have really lovely titles and they do a really good job. Their their Fruits Basket translation was really well done. Um, I love the editions that we have in our library physically. Um, I've bought a lot from them in the past when building our physical collection, but I guess they don't like my money. Um, I I don't know what's going on. I would love to know more about why uh, they just have no presence. Because to kind of talk about things that are, here's things that are a little bit of drama in the manga and anime world. Uh, Manga and anime are stolen regularly. Manga and anime fans are notorious thieves. Like they're pirates of the first degree, and it's it's built out of a lot of things. Part of it is um, my generation. We had a really hard time accessing content, and so your best bet to get certain things was to pirate things. Um, some of us, as access has improved, we don't pirate anymore. But others feel very entitled, and there's different there's different aspects. I mean, first off, manga is expensive. I am not going to sit here and tell anybody that manga's cheap. Um, with the exception of the Shonen Jump application, everything else is fairly cost prohibitive. I mean, we are talking $10 a volume is the absolute lowest, but you can get up to, depending on what it is, you can get up to $50 a volume. And if you're somebody who's collecting things that are out of print, it could get really expensive. I have tried to really curtail my physical volume collections for that reason. I am not rich. I don't have a ton of money. I do try to utilize libraries as much as possible for my media consumption. I don't have a ton of disposable income at this point in time, and so I try to keep what I collect very narrow and very specific. I collect cat manga and certain writers and certain titles. It has to be very special to me, and that's even regular books. I am a librarian that has barely any books in my house. Actually, my husband has way more books than I do. I took most of my books and put them into my school library, actually. I slapped barcodes on them. So that's just, I get it. I get the struggle. And at the same time, there's just this constant thing of like manga fans feeling entitled to have access to things while not recognizing that there is someone who creates this and is depending on income from creating this thing to survive. And it being a mangaka is not a multi-million-dollar job. A lot of them are really scraping by. It does hurt mangaka to not have income. So, and it's a problem in the industry, and it actually really, the piracy that's inherent in the manga and anime community almost broke it at one point because the bubble kind of popped at one point. It's actually what really broke Tokyo Pop. There's a really great video from a YouTuber called Red Bard who really talks about the rise and fall of Tokyo Pop. And piracy kind of plays into what happened in terms of the manga markets and why for a while manga really kind of shrunk. And now we are finally starting to get really unique, really interesting titles, and people are still insisting on pirating titles that they can actually read the most recent chapters for free on Shonen Jump. There's no reason to be stealing My Hero Academia in the year 2021. So that's the current climate, and publishers really want this to go away. They want the pirating, they want the stealing, they want the bad translations that are out there that are circulating to go away. And yet, they won't develop a strong relationship with libraries. Instead, they are turning to services such as Amazon and not providing a strong way for people who are struggling financially to gain some form of access to manga and anime. Because the thing is, with otaku, for better or worse, they consider being an otaku and consuming this media as part of their identity. So they will do whatever they can to get at it. So if there aren't points of access, they are going to keep stealing. And the more it's paywalled, and the more it is inaccessible, the more these terrible translations are going to happen, and the more we're going to start careening towards another bubble that's going to burst. And that is absolutely the last thing I want to see happen, because I love manga and I want to see even weirder stuff than what's getting published right now. There are titles that I'm constantly writing into publishers and saying, please, please, please bring this over. I really, really want to read this. Life with a Gamer and Cats. Please. So, my big ask of publishers is to really consider that we can be a great partner and not look at us as somebody else who is stealing from you, which is kind of the vibe I'm getting. I'm getting the vibe that you see us, providing free access as a sort of theft. And that's not it at all. We're paying you, first off, for the licenses, and we are providing that access based on, funds that we have. We're not going to give out any more access than what we can pay for. So, just give us the opportunity to pay for it. I mean, that's really it. I don't know. It sort of brings to mind, I once got into an argument with someone who created a very popular video game about libraries giving access to video games, He did not believe that libraries should circulate video games, that it was stealing. And we had this big back and forth about, you know, we buy, if we have a video game in a library, we have purchased the copy of the video game. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's just part of otaku culture that is nervous about it. Maybe it's part of, I don't know. But it'd be really great if, you know, more access was provided. Because the majority of people that you're denying this access to are young people who right now are looking for a way to escape, a way to enjoy life, and just, you know, blow off some steam. And that is what ultimately this type of entertainment is for, is that escapism. So that was kind of my soapbox a bit. I hope this helps a little if you're navigating collection development on Overdrive. If you'd like more like guided things, like which specific titles from these publishers would I recommend, blah blah blah, you can always reach out and ask me. Particularly with 7Cs, there are several that I really like. I actually got kind of annoyed because they announced a few right after I put in my order. There were a few that were announced for like later this month that I'm like, oh, those would have been so great to add. But whatever. So that's that with this video. It's super long, but there's a lot to talk about with this topic. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.